I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Moscow. It belongs to everyone.
And this mentality led to Soviet Bio Shock. Look, socialists finally succeeded to domesticate the pigeons. Well, this is more like BioShock Infinite, actually. It's a very cinematic experience that only wears the skin of an immersive sim, but it's actually more of a corridor shooter with some RPG mechanics and a bit of resource management. Until the game just throws you into an open world. A really bland and empty open world, but at the same time very pretty. After playing for a good chunk, I thought to myself, so that's it. That's the whole game. Me being stuck in an underground office complex. And then, wham! Idyllic mountain panorama. And even though there isn't much to it, aside from some neat art design and good ambience, the developers still crafted a really engaging game world and give you some nice little abilities to play around and interact with the world and its inhabitants. And it's a bit janky. But hey, I finally played some Slav Jank, and it's glorious. So this whole game takes place in a communist utopia. How do we know it's a communist utopia? Well, under communism, the view from your window is always a great one. Your TV never breaks, no matter how hard you try. Mugs won't ever drop from the table because they can fucking float, and so can trees. And body parts. Holy shit, what's wrong with that guy? Communist Pepe. Now I've seen everything. But for real, this is a really well envisioned, I wanna call it set piece or stage. I can't really comment on the world building because I'm not sure how much sense it will make in the end, but what is here is rather intriguing. The moment-to-moment writing is actually quite cheap and obvious, but it doesn't appear to be a parody. It is tongue-in-cheek in a lot of places, but it doesn't mock the idea of a high-tech, super-futuristic 1950s Soviet superpower. It explores it. You start off in a beautifully decorated town during a parade, where you travel via gondola through canals next to a row of industrialized apartment blocks. The kind I dimly remember from my own short time living in a socialist country in the late 80s. I guess architecture isn't something that flourishes under socialism. And there's ballet music blasting through speakers. Yeah, let's get some Tchaikovsky going on in here. The music overall is pretty darn great. Everyone is happy and content, society seems to run pretty smoothly. And while there is some talk about the Americans doing their thing overseas, the United Soviet Socialist Republics are busy with advancing technology 100 years each year. Robots, flying cars, space travel, and even the colonization of the most communist of planets. All made possible by the invention of this game's major hook and gimmick, the polymer. A gel-like, highly reactive and potent biochemical transmitter. I have no idea what I'm saying here. It's this game's Adam. With it you can telepathically communicate, control devices with your thoughts, or summon the elements themselves. It's also used to power robots or grow food. It's miracle juice that can do anything, and that's why the Soviet Union is such a massive player a few years after the Second World War. With that stuff, it's no wonder there's such a major threat in Command & Conquer. Since this game takes actually place in the past, its retro-futuristic look makes more sense than it does in, for example, Fallout. I guess you can't really call it retro-futuristic, more like advanced history. We need a new term for that. Many of the robots are bulky fridges on legs. Cars are carried through the sky by trash cans with propellers. Every possible task or job is carried out by really redundant machinery. And the humanoid security robots sport awesome porn stashes. And now that the robot uprising has begun and everything has gone to shits, we were sent out to deal with the problems, find the traitors responsible for this mess and bring them to justice. And mostly try to survive. We are outfitted with the latest polymer technology that lets us utilize a bunch of gamey abilities like a scanner or a frost ray, but also telekinesis. Or we can just shoot goo. By visiting upgrade stations, we can learn new or enhance existing abilities and also craft and upgrade weapons from recipes we'll find throughout our journey. All these different methods of attack range from underwhelming to standard to pretty fun and somewhat unique, or at least creative. Covering enemies in goo enhances the effects of your other abilities, but you can also cover the ground in goo to freeze or shock multiple enemies at once. Even the enemies themselves can involuntarily create a trap out of your goo with their own abilities. You unlock a bunch of makeshift weapons, some standard guns but also energy weapons that don't use up regular ammo but rely on you recharging your energy cells by beating enemies to a pulp with your melee weapons. That can be modified as well to have completely different attacks. There's quite a lot of small customization options when it comes to your weapons and a good amount of more substantial options when it comes to your polymer abilities. The obligatory power increase, but also increased blasting range, the ability to have the effect travel from one enemy to another, added special effects and some neat upgrades for the player character itself, like increased movement speed, multiple dodges, unlockable iframes, and a bigger inventory that has an in-universe explanation where you use your special polymers to shrink down anything in your pocket and enlarge it again when you grab it. Yeah, as I said, the world building has some neat ideas, I just hope it makes sense in the end. Now, this whole immersive sim gameplay works best in somewhat confined spaces. I don't mean long labyrinthian hallways, but an enclosed complex with a lot of bigger and smaller rooms, multiple access ways and a few secret rooms would be perfect for this kind of game. Kinda like System Shock. Or Prey. That one really nailed what this game at least seems to try. So, this game doesn't really know what it wants. You start off in an underground facility that at first looks promising, with a central hallway with a bunch of rooms left and right, and a fork in the road leading towards two possible directions. But we'll soon discover that the whole progression is pretty linear. If you go the wrong way, you end up in a dead end. Most of the time a locked door that will be opened later by you on your way back from your objective in that particular area. There is a lot of exploration, mostly to find crafting materials, but nothing really substantial. Most doors you encounter won't ever open. Most paths you discover are mandatory to your progression. For the first few hours. Until the game becomes an open world full of wide, empty spaces, safe for random rocks and trees, and completely unfurnitured or copy-pasted houses. With arbitrary enemy patrols moving aimlessly through this shallow landscape, randomly placed cameras that alert other enemies to your position, and flying drones that appear every time you kill an enemy to repair it, so you can never be safe in this world. Oh, there are some really sweet set pieces here and there. A small residential area overgrown with zombie plants that produce plant zombies, so they joined forces in the end. A destroyed hotel, a monorail station. There's just so much wasted space in between those areas. And it didn't have to be that way. We travel through an artificial landscape that was sculptured out of the dirt by terraforming robots. There's no reason for all these compounds and facilities to not be closer together. Or just have the player explore smaller areas that are connected by the monorail. Kinda like they did in Dead Space. The original, not the new one where everything is interconnected. In a better way than in this game. Maybe the open areas get better later in the game, but so far I'm not impressed. It looks great, but it doesn't offer anything substantial gameplay-wise. There's not even that much to find in all the far-off corners of these open areas. Again, it's pretty empty. Oh, you find a destroyed robot here and there. But it is once again just window dressing with no interactivity. It's really only the major locations on the map that have anything interesting going for it. Which is weird because the devs made sure that looting stuff feels really satisfying. You don't open crates, containers, drawers or cabinets by hand. I mean, you do, but in a different way. You use your telekinesis glove to just pull open doors, drawers and whatever else from afar, and stuff just flies towards you through the air. If you loot mechanical parts of robots and former humans, you just rip them out forcefully and have the bodies ragdoll towards you. Oh yeah, the game really incentivizes you mutilating corpses. It just feels awesome. And you can just slice and dice everyone you come across. Decapitating an enemy with a finishing blow or splitting them in half is the most satisfying thing you do in the game. At least it's more satisfying than the rest of the combat. I mean, the combat is fine, it works well enough, but I already called the game janky. There is very little weight to hitting enemies or getting hit by them. And your ranged weapons don't really pack any punch. Yeah, your shotgun is a short-range death sentence, but just because the enemy instantly drops dead in multiple places doesn't mean it feels powerful. Your pistol and even this huge-ass energy gun have zero stopping power. Even this magnificent lightning ball just moves through enemies like air. It does a ton of damage, but the enemy itself doesn't seem to notice. Don't get me wrong, employing strategies and using your arsenal in creative ways is a lot of fun, and taking on enemies in melee battles can be quite challenging, but the lack of feedback dampens the whole experience. And I guess this game wants to be melee focused, what with the limited inventory and resource management, though you can hold onto quite a lot of weapons and find plenty of ammunition. In addition to your polymer abilities and energy weapons recharging on their own. But yeah, you can customize your heavy attacks and upgrade your combo speed, learn multiple defensive maneuvers and generally get rewarded for dealing with enemies in more intimate ways. Humanoid enemies have a good range of attacks of their own and require good reflexes, pattern recognition and some strategy to overcome them without wasting too many healing items, which are also plentiful in this game. But enemies don't really flinch when you hit them and have a very short recovery time after they attack. A lot of times you just get punched while attacking them because they are just too quick. They gang up on you and just wail on you with fast combos and unblockable attacks that throw you to the ground. This becomes a real problem in the open world where machines get endlessly repaired, so you never really clear an area of threats and you just don't get a moment to breathe. You killed all the enemies in an area and just want to look for loot? Too bad, the fucking repair drones just started attacking you or have already reanimated a bunch of destroyed robots that now snuck up on you again. Well, just get rid of them again, but now the cameras are back on and those immediately summon all the robots in the area to your position when they catch you fight any robot. So you can either waste tons of resources or just leg it. Neither one feels particularly great. And when you choose to just go on the offensive, your attacks don't feel like there's a lot of weight behind them. Like it's those powerful attacks with these heavy metal constructions. It's more like you whack a stick in front of you, just very slowly. Just having the enemies flinch and stop in their tracks for a second would do a lot to help with that. And it would really help if you could use your basic telekinesis in combat for more than just throwing cardboard boxes around. I mean, why can't I pick up debris or electrified wires and stuff like that to throw at enemies? Really use the environment. Yeah, there's a lot of missed potential in this game, in addition to oversights and misguided design decisions. I really don't like the interface. I don't like how you cycle through your weapons and how you can't cycle through your healing items. At least I haven't found a way to do it. But I did waste a bunch of large medpacks while trying. I also don't like how the different icons look. I don't know what these symbols are supposed to mean and I always have to double check to see if I selected the right one. Then, and that may just be something only I experienced so far, but the game seems to have problems with my Xbox gamepad. I can play just fine, but inside pretty much all the menus it doesn't work properly. There's not always an option to use the digipad to cycle through menu options, so you have to use the stupid cursor. But when I try to use the controller, the cursor is stuck on the left side of the screen. Oh, the irony that the cursor is too far on the left for this communist game to work properly. So I had to use the mouse to navigate through the menus. But this came with its own little glitches, because to install upgrades or craft something, you need to hold the right mouse button. But you see, this also executes your heavy attack. So after leaving the upgrade menu, on multiple occasions my character just instantly transitioned into a spin attack. And when swapping to my shotgun, he randomly fired a shot. But, of course, this game's heavy propaganda could never allow attacks from the right to even slightly damage the communist machinery. Yeah, alright, enough with the dumb jokes. This game is weird. There's some good fun to have with it, and the game world is really enjoyable. The art design is great, and there are so many interesting ideas buried in all the jank. But then there is the jank. Glitchy collision, weightless combat, projectiles that hit you even though you avoided the targeting lasers, so why are they even there? Voice acting that sounds fine but is a bit too relaxed for the situations it takes place in.
What the shit?
Though I guess it's my fault for playing in English when the original language is Russian, and I guess it does sound more fitting.
Вот это сюрприз. Опять оно. Берегитесь. Робот ежиха-7 очень опасен. Да кто бы мог подумать, а на вид такое солнышко.
But now the tiny text boxes over NPCs' heads are even worse, and the lack of accessibility options for things like subtitles becomes more of a problem. Then there is an over-reliance on cutscenes at points, and a good number of them are drawn out to the point of boredom. There's the empty open world. Really fun special abilities that are underutilized, but the game's still a lot of fun. Playing around with your arsenal is enjoyable, encountering new enemy types is exhilarating. And the more tightly constructed hallway-style areas are actually pretty well designed. During these moments the game could be considered a more janky but also more creative BioShock Infinite. And if you enjoyed the more streamlined, dumbed-down, immersive sim approach of that game, you'll surely get a good amount of enjoyment out of this one as well. Should you get a GamePass subscription just for this game? I'm not sure. I tend to say no. But if you already have a subscription or want one for some other games, then you should check out this game. With all its flaws, I still have a great time with it. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. But no matter what you're going to do, have a great day. This has been Rady, and I hope to see you again on the next game.